So it's around midday, December 26th, or the day after Christmas, for those of you who think in those terms. And I'm outside and I just finished emptying our dry toilet. There's the bucket we use right there, into the right side, which is where we have our active humanure compost. And on the left side there, with the metal laminate and seam on top, you can see that's the first humanure compost that we did that is now composting, aging for about a year. So that'll be ready to use. It should be around May, next May. And this one, in the meantime, the one on the right, we're filling now. So old one, new one. There's the bucket drying in the sun. In the meantime, I'm next to this slope, and up there you can see up there's the street behind the fence. Maybe you can see the fence there. You can see the fence better there. And you can see a bunch of palm trees at the top. So we call this the palm slope. So we have to identify these different areas. So this is a very steep slope where I did some earthworks. Basically created very tiny, very narrow terraces along the way. Again, as I said in the other video on the avocado slope, to catch water that was careening down. And anyway, I cleaned this slope, the machete, cut and dropped it, shall we say, about maybe 10 days ago now. So it's already getting overgrown because the rains, we're still having rains. It's the end of December. We should have a few more rains, I would bet. And then January, pretty much like clockwork, it stops raining. So we'll have our dry season for a few months until April or May of next year. So anyway, I thought I would just show this since I had cleaned it relatively recently, and you can kind of make out details on this slope. What we have here, this is my original Oro Blanco tree, which has been in the ground here about a year. It just had a really nice big growth spur, so it's looking very lush. Still a pretty small tree. I'd love to have it make fruit for me next year. This year, it flowered insanely, like it was just pure white. The entire tree was white, but it didn't hold a single fruit, which is just as well that it knew better. It was still too small. But maybe this next year it will fruit. I'd love to have at least one fruit from this tree. There are more citruses on here that have passed away. And you can see there's concrete works that the original owners of the house or builders of the house did. They used concrete like it was going out of style, which they didn't know it, but it actually was, because it was going to become, with our economic war, insanely expensive. And also, not to mention the fact that ecologically it's disaster, so better not to use it. But they didn't know, so they made all these concrete boxes, and you can see this one is has sort of slumped into the, it's rather inclined or on the diagonal there. They really did this place like it was a sort of formal estate with these decorative palms lining the entrance there, lining the border in these cement planter boxes. And we used to drive by this house all the time, going up to visit neighbors up above from our land, which is down that way, on the other side of the house over there. We'd drive by this house and go, can you imagine if we could have that house? And now we do. Pretty amazing, and thank you so much to my family for making that happen. But anyway, so this is right there is a citrus that was really unhealthy. If it had a graft, I don't know what it was, and it was just in terrible shape, so we cut it down to stumps. So these oh, you can't see, I didn't really work on this particular terrace very much. The ones that are up, you can see where I'm stepping, right? This is actually more or less horizontal. The ones I worked on more further up there, like this one here, is not horizontal. They're not horizontal, actually. They are tilted back into the mountain to make it more of a catch for water. Oh, here's a pigeon pea. It put out a bunch of seeds, only a few came up. Here you can see this trench. See, it's actually sloped back that way into the mountain so that it catches more water on the way down. If it was horizontal, it would start to slip. So over there are two more oranges that have their grafts. Let's see. That one's, I think, one of these small navels, maybe small navel oranges, or possibly a California navel. I'm not sure. It hasn't given us enough fruit to really be able to judge. And the tree isn't particularly healthy. It's looking better now, but when we got here, it was in bad shape. Lots of parasites, lots of dead wood. I've been pruning back the dead wood. I gave it some what's that stuff called? Manure, and etc. Trying to get it to perk up. And we'll see how it does this coming year. If it gets better, but I'm not sure. It's just some kind of a navel. And then the one behind it, I'm walking away from what I'm talking about right now, but now I'm going to walk towards it. Here's since I happen to be standing in front of it, this is a Eugenia Patrici, which is, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually a Venezuelan Eugenia, or however you pronounce that in English. Boy, it just doesn't look very good, does it? And it hasn't looked better since I planted it out here, and it's had some time in the ground to perk up. So I'm not sure what its problem is. I have to ask the person who sold me the plant. But it's a pretty tree when it's in good shape, and it gives these little tiny red fruit. Well, not tiny, but small, notably small. Little red fruit. Oh, here. See how it's a trench? It's not the best for walking on, but again, we use this for walking, but it's not for taking a casual stroll. It's just for traversing the mountainside to clean it and everything. But really, these are for water, not so much for human comfort. Anyway, walking towards, there's the navel I was talking about. Oh, see, here's some dill. I've got some dill going on. I scattered a lot of dill seeds here, and quite a few of them have come up. I'm letting them flower so they keep spreading their seeds so we can have more dill in the landscape. I don't actually use dill that much in cooking. I'd like to use it more, but it's not an herb that I'm really accustomed to using. But I like the way it smells. Anyway, so here's this navel orange. Like I said, it's got a few fruit on it now. Definitely a navel. That's a navel. They're not as small as the little dwarfy ones that we have. Look at all this dead wood. I'm pulling off here. Whole branches that are dead. And I've already been taking off quite a bit. But it's getting better, actually. Believe it or not, this is actually an improvement from when it was, and it has some new growth. There's some new growth there. So I think it's going to recover. You can see the kind of parasites we have. These are called piñas because they look like little pineapples. They get much bigger than this. I'll take that off. This was full of piñas. And also another one that's a vine type thing that suckers onto established trees and just sucks the juice and grows as if it was part of the same tree. It's called tinea here. I don't know what it's called in English, but I'd never seen it before I came here. Anyway, this is a caracara navel, similar to the other navel. This one has been pretty unhealthy and is just starting to look a little better, coming back. We fertilized it a bit and gave it some vetiver to help it hold, because this is the only one on this slope, on the palm slope, that didn't have a concrete box. So we gave it a vetiver thing to start holding its water and holding its whatever fertilizer type stuff we gave it. Anyway, it has this one fruit. It seems to have a different schedule than our other caracara, which is coming in now with all the other citruses, which is normal, right? It's like a winter fruit, comes in December, January, and even February, March. But this one fruited a while ago, and fruit was ready like summerish. I don't know if that's normal for this tree or if it was just a weirdness this year or what. But it didn't give much anyway. So anyway, this is the view from this side. Looking back, you can see I did some stairs. Maybe you can see this is a stair right there, and the stairs go down. They're already pretty overgrown. Oh, this is a governor's plum we planted this past year. Grows really tall, thorny. We have a huge one in the food forest on the other side on our old property that's been in the ground for quite some time. It's gigantic and hasn't given fruit yet. So I don't know if this one's going to fruit sooner, but we'll see. That's sort of an unobtrusive place for it to be and get bigger and see what happens. So from here, you can see back to the house and get a sense of the steepness of this slope. We're going to be planting quite a lot more in the lower. There's nothing planted down there in the lower strata of this slope down here. So we'll be planting all kinds of trees and bushes down there over the time. But for now, it's basically just cutting back the jungle as it grows. Oh, here's a cassia that I put in this space. Oh, and look, a coneflower. I planted coneflower, echinacea. Let's get down there. Look at this plant. Look at this little flower. So pretty. It's the first one that I got. I planted a ton of these plants. They all die. None of them can keep up with the weeds around here with the volunteer plants. They can't. But this one actually survived, and it made one flower. Unfortunately, it's a perennial, so it can keep getting bigger and giving me more flowers. That's very exciting. This is a cassia. Cassias grow really slowly, but this one finally is visible from a distance. Before, you had to come up here and be right where I am, right next to it, in order to find it. But I put on a little size this year, so hopefully that will continue. So you can see this whole slope down there has nothing except there's some dill, but that's it. And then the vetiver row at the bottom. So I have some planting to do here, but I have to decide what those things are going to be. So there you go. There's our palm slope at Casa Villayala.